My name is Emily Coatney, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the culture of inner city African American youth. You see, in society today, mainstream media has a really big influence on the world and opinions and what people believe. And often the media itself and even researchers and social scientists that have tried to study African American urban youth have generalized these students and young people into behaviors and patterns that fit into a specific definition. And by doing this, they've removed from these students, from these people, the ability to see into the depths of who these people are. You see, it's easier to generalize somebody than it is to go further and see the complexity of their lives. So that complexity, the differentiation that we have between people, that's what makes up humanity, that's what makes up a person. And when we do that, though, it doesn't fit into our categories of who someone is and who they're not. So,
at least 24 people were shot and injured between late Saturday afternoon and early Sunday morning. Police believe most shootings were gang or drug related.
Take note that when the news reporter said the crimes were gang or drug related, the camera immediately focused on a group of African American men. This news report, taken in 2014, is one of many that dramatizes stereotypes about urban African Americans. The report is comprised of short clips of black youth and older men, while the newscaster talks about crime and violence. The only citizens filmed besides the white police are black. Who these individuals are and whether or not they actually have anything to do with the crimes being spoken of is never mentioned. This is a prime example of pathologizing discourses, or the range of ways people or places are made to stand in for or symbolize as a whole a host of social ills or problems, as well as racial discourses where the same association is applied based off race. Whether treated as rebellious and violent problems or cast as the victims trying to cope or adapt to racism and poverty, media and ethnographers reinforce monolithic interpretations of black urban culture. Urban black youth in particular face environments where who they are is assumed before they walk into their school classroom.
Robin D.G. Kelley talks about in his novel, Yo Mama's Dysfunctional, about how social scientists and researchers often try to use the terms behavior and culture interchangeably. And the problem is that when these researchers continue to study inner city African American urban youth, they are looking for fixed behaviors that the media and society has already put on these students, that they've said that if this behavior happens to a few of these students, then it exists with all of them. It's a part of all of who they are. And that's the problem. We're not giving depth to not only the specific behaviors that they're bringing up, but we're not giving depth and complexity to these specific youth.
In the late 90s and early 20th century, researcher Elijah Anderson studied and termed what he called Code of the Street, where he created notions of black masculinity and blamed behaviors of black youth on a lack of role models. He even linked violent behaviors to the code, where black males have to constantly perform and prove themselves. But the problem is, instead of being a part of the lives of these youth and giving them a voice to express the reasoning behind their behavior, researchers like Anderson were simply going out and looking for the behaviors themselves. By highlighting the behaviors and associating them with these youth, you propagate the problem itself.
So I'm going to talk about my relationship with a student who I'll name Marcus for the sake of confidentiality, who lives even currently as an almost 9th grader in North Tulsa in the inner city. And the thing about this student that I loved was that his heart and where he wanted to go in life, what his dreams were just absolutely incredible. He had dreams of going back to his city and helping students like him who came out of those situations. I mean, he wanted to be a rapper because he wanted to have a voice and talk about, in a creative way, the circumstances of his life. It wasn't a negative thing. It wasn't an evil thing. It was entertaining. It was fun. And it was also a place for him to have his voice. He was good at it, and he wanted something that he could use, that he was talented at, for good. Marcus continued to tell me about how his teachers would say that he was a bad student, he was a bad kid. They would throw him in detention. He had to move schools several times. But my time spent with him was at a nonprofit where we had tutoring and sports and activities for kids to do. And at this organization where I would spend 3 days a week with this kid, I noticed that he never got in trouble. He was well behaved. He was respectful. And I loved to talk to him. He would laugh. It was fun. And yet, his reality